to order. Ready? And recognize that we are gathering on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, and we are grateful for their stewardship and care of this land since time immemorial. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll move that we committee approve the agenda for April the 24th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you. And a
Second.
seconder? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And delegations. Experience Comox Valley, powered by 4VI.
Move
It's
receipt.
the revolving name change. Come on up. Nice to have you here. You're both welcome to come up. You're welcome to sit if you like, or stand, or whatever you like to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much for having me. Also want to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional unceded territory of Comox First Nation. My name's Callum Matthews, and I'm the Vice President of Sustainability and Strategy at 4VI, and joined by my colleague Tanya here, who is the lead for our Comox Valley work. Today we wanted to provide you with a little bit of a snapshot of, first of all, some sort of bigger picture regional things and a bit of an update on our organization 4VI, now that we're kind of a year into this new organizational structure as a social enterprise, and then dig into some of the work that we're doing here in the Comox Valley specifically. So believe it or not, Tourism Vancouver Island, which is our, still our legal name, it was actually the oldest part of British Columbia's tourism ecosystem. We were founded back in the early 1960s, and it was really a group of mayors who got together and wanted to promote Vancouver Island to visitors, and it was primarily around sport fishing. And this idea that we could work together as communities and sort of grow the shared benefits of tourism. But, the industry has changed a huge amount since some of the really old school ads you can see there. And I think perhaps the one on the right-hand side best captures the changes. I had the pleasure of being out in Tofino over the weekend. It did not look like that. There were more than 4 people there. The sort of glory days of our organization were, call it like 2010 to 2015 or so. Throughout the majority of our history, we're focused almost entirely on promotion, so trying to get visitors to come here. And we were really well known for making print pieces like this. And at that time, it made a lot of sense. Businesses couldn't really afford, particularly smaller ones, to generate their own print pieces with this sort of reach, so they could buy in, communities could buy in, and we'd take in about $1 million of provincial funding and then pretty well double it with investment from communities and from businesses. But with the growth of social media and the growth of smaller community destination management organizations like Experience Comox Valley, our role as Tourism Vancouver Island in that print marketing system was really starting to fade, and investment year over year was on a pretty steady decline. And we knew for some time that we had to make a pretty significant strategic shift to stay relevant and survive as an organization, but also to serve the needs of an evolving industry. So, when we were first getting started, and up until the 2010s, there were very few community DMOs, and now today we have more than 14, depending on how you sort of classify a DMO.
What's a DMO?
Destination Management or Marketing Organization.
Okay.
And so the 14 captured here would be receiving hotel tax money. It's called MRDT, or Municipal and Regional District Tax, and it really enables a community to market itself. And you'll hear about that work locally from Tanya. But it just sort of underscores, there's more and more money in the marketing system, and it's more kind of localized and community-based. And more than anything, we really had to think a lot differently about the type of value that we bring. We also wanted to start thinking differently about who we exist to serve as an organization. Through pretty well the entirety of our history, we were focused on really just serving tourism businesses. And recently went through a series of changes to our bylaws so that residents of Vancouver Island are now our stakeholders as well as businesses. So trying to broaden that role that we play and trying to be a community partner. A major turning point for us and many other organizations was the pandemic. And what you can see captured here, the gray line in particular, was a spike of about 20% in visitation in a couple of weeks in August. So I don't know if anybody else felt that. 2021 feels like a long time ago. But in that part of August, we were 20% busier than ever before, than 2019, and we really felt it. Our CEO was getting angry calls all the time from people, and I think when we were discussing with our board, it felt like things were out of balance. It was too much, too fast, particularly coming out of the circuit breaker lockdowns and challenges in staffing up, and I think everybody felt those sorts of issues. And we really ultimately decided to reinvent ourselves as an organization. Rebranding is 4VI, and our mission is to ensure that travel is a force for good for Vancouver Island forever. We long had a sort of saying on our team, a good place to live is a good place to visit. And I think we believe that the majority of people who come to Vancouver Island come here to experience what it's like to live here. They want to, see the coastal creativity and experience our small businesses and the natural beauty and wildlife. And we were really feeling that we were at a point where if we continued down a status quo business as usual approach, we could envision a really unfortunate future state where our communities have too many visitors. Businesses are all changing to cater to visitors rather than to locals, and what makes our region special would change. So we decided to change ourselves. This captures sort of the process of change that we had as an organization over a series of years. Most of our history, as I mentioned, being marketing oriented, and then we moved into this space called destination management, and that's really trying to be a little more nuanced and balance and integrate to local planning and support product development and things like that. But for us, the phrase management kind of implies a level of ownership that we simply don't feel like we have over the communities on Vancouver Island. And that's for us where we wanted to kind of move into a different space that other tourism organizations haven't been focused on. And that's kind of this concept of social responsibility. So one of the big shifts is moving to a concept of a social enterprise as an organization. So we remain a nonprofit organization, and we have a handful of major contracts that generate the majority of our revenue. Some of them are, the biggest of which being with Destination British Columbia. We also take on a range of other fee-for-service projects, planning initiatives, projects like Experience Comox Valley, that help us to kind of bring our values-based approach to tourism management elsewhere. And then it helps us to sort of, grow our team and our influence. And then locally, it enables some really good value on the community level where we can have somebody like Tanya full-time dedicated to Experience Comox Valley, but she's then able to tap into the rest of our team of about 16 or 17 professionals, depending on the area of expertise that she might rely upon. Our work with Destination BC is really key, and they've been a key partner for us for many, many years. Our relationship right now is really thriving and based around these areas. Content production is really storytelling, amplifying local stories. It's all for us focused on how to travel with a lower carbon footprint, how to increase community benefits and be mindful when you're traveling, really taking that sort of sustainable lens. Destination development is a longer-term planning process. It's really trying to make sure that we're being really thoughtful about the long-term development of tourism. Destination stewardship, those priorities is really around reconciliation and Indigenous tourism development and climate action work. And then travel, trade, and media. Media obviously bring journalists to help tell the story of the island, and trade helps to connect business owners with farther long haul markets in Europe. And the Invest in Iconics is a provincial marketing campaign that we're helping to Destination BC to navigate in the region. Aside from that, we're really proud to have a range of projects that, along that lens of social responsibility, were very different from work that we would have been doing 5 years ago. The first, and this was really brought about by the pandemic, and we're just kind of winding this program down now, is the Resiliency Network. And it was really designed to meet business owners where they were at and help them navigate whatever sort of issue they may have been facing. So it could have been dealing with layoffs. It could have been legal or HR policies, refunding policies, and then eventually it shifted to integrating public health measures in your operation, how to tell your story using digital channels, things like that. It was completely free for businesses, and we were able to support more than 500 businesses through that program. Another big priority area for us is around mountain biking, and this brings it a little closer to home here. We're able to support some trail enhancements in Cumberland, which was wonderful, but we also were able to support every other registered nonprofit mountain bike society on Vancouver Island. I think we all know it's a big driver of tourism and livability, and the work of building world-class mountain bike experiences being used by visitors has generally been falling on really dedicated volunteers. And we felt that there was really an inequity when it comes to mountain biking, so tried to do our part as best we could to help some of those leaders on the ground, and hope to help find other funding sources in a longer term sense as well. Another really interesting one, we were able to support the construction of a pavilion in Bamfield. And this was, interestingly, not a tourism priority. It was a resident priority. There was no covered space for folks to gather where they'd be out of the rain. And through talking to the community association and then eventually tourism operators, we found that was a need for both residents and for visitors. So we were able to partner with the community forest, the community association, Chamber of Commerce, and a group of UBC architecture students who did the design of this place. It's fully accessible, and it's Bamfield will. It's just about finished. We'll have a really wonderful covered space for the benefit of residents and visitors. And the reason I wanted to flag this one is it's trying to think a little bit differently for what tourism infrastructure is. And for us, the idea, in a perfect sense, is that great infrastructure for residents will help benefit visitors, rather than building really sort of over-investing in things just for visitors. Let's start with resident needs, take visitor needs into account, but really be resident focused and ensure we're building really livable communities. So that was just a really quick snapshot into some of the work that we're doing. Today we just announced and published a report. It's sort of first of its kind climate action report that details the carbon emissions from the entire tourism industry on Vancouver Island. And it accompanied with that is a decarbonization plan. So just another example of some of the work that we're trying to do that is honestly quite different from what most tourism organizations are focused on. But we're really proud to also be supporting work here in the Comox Valley, which Tanya will be talking a little bit more about. If you're interested in any more information, really happy to answer questions after Tanya. And we also have a new website, 4vi.ca, that captures a lot more. It's got our impact strategy. April 13th was our 1-year anniversary as 4VI, so it talks about all the work we've done in the past year. And we also have a 3-year business plan there that kind of details our areas of focus. But that said, I will pass things over to Tanya.
Thank you. Welcome, Tanya.
Hello. So as Callan mentioned, my name is Tanya. I'm the Comox Valley Marketing Coordinator. We market as Experience Comox Valley. As you know, we are contracted for tourism service here as a region, so for destination marketing, visitor servicing, and stakeholder engagement. So I'm going to go over, oops, I hit the wrong button. I knew I was going to do that. All right, so part of our strategic plan as Experience Comox Valley is that the Comox Valley is recognized as the premier year-round Vancouver Island destination for outdoor, culinary, and cultural activities. And to do this, basically implement fiscally prudent destination marketing initiatives that are informed and tested through that stakeholder engagement piece, and focused on increasing the length of stays, the geographical and seasonal dispersion. Our funding sources are primarily Destination BC Co-op Marketing Grant, the MRDT, which is that Municipal Regional District Tax that currently the City of Courtenay collects, as well as the local government contribution, and we get some random provincial and federal grants such as Canada Summer Jobs, which we actually just heard back from today and we're very excited about for the Visitor Center. So our 4 main strategic objectives for this current year that we're in, number 1 is increase revenue from visitation, and to do this we want to generate leads to businesses, manage growth and benefit through the seasonal and geographical dispersion. So really understanding where capacity is available with our destination activities, as well as spreading them out throughout the whole region. We don't want people to just come here and stay in one little part of the region the whole time. We want them to spread around and check out all the great things, both in Cumberland, Courtenay, Comox, as well as the surrounding rural communities. Increase competitiveness of the Comox Valley as a desired destination. So improve the visitor experience and increase collaboration with and amongst our stakeholders that are here, making sure that we're really working together to put our best foot forward. And then the last one is support sustainable tourism initiatives and activities. So obviously aligning with 4VI and as well as the community here. Our Tourism Advisory Committee has really spoken out about how important sustainability is to them, so we wanted to make sure we were reflecting that in our objectives. So things like amplifying the messaging, the good work that local businesses are already doing, making sure that we're putting that message out there, as well as working with the Biosphere program and helping local businesses get Biosphere committed. Our target audiences are, so primarily in BC, we're looking at Victoria as well as the Lower Mainland. In Alberta, we focus largely on Calgary and Edmonton, especially being that there are the direct flight options right to our Comox Valley Airport from those two cities. And then lastly, Washington State. Primarily, we're looking at 35 plus families. The Explorer Quotient is for people who are authentic experiencers, rejuvenators, cultural explorers, interested in activities, outdoor, marine, culinary, and those arts and culture, those as being our three main pillars. So just a quick look back at last year and some of the highlights. So I just briefly mentioned it. We did form a Comox Valley Tourism Advisory Committee. There are 11 members from varying sectors within tourism, plus the CVRD liaison, and myself and Callum, we joined those meetings. We had 6 meetings in 2022. The main purpose of this advisory committee, or the TAC, is to advise, review, and recommend annual marketing and destination planning. And we want to work collaboratively and represent the best interests of tourism stakeholders in Comox Valley. So we really need them to help us guide the work that we're doing, and like I said, to tell us what's needed and when and how. Traditional marketing activities that we do, obviously print. We have a number of annual print magazines that we put full page or 2-page spreads in. We have our vacation guide, which is actually the newest version. Will be going to print at the end of this week, so the latest version should be coming out very soon. We also have a 2-page spread in the Guide to Arts and Culture, the Discover Vancouver Island magazine, which for this year is now Go Vancouver Island. Visitor Guide, the Canada Travel and Lifestyle magazine. And also new for this year, we are the front page cover of a Landmark Media map, which is really nice to have our pictures and our branding right forward there. Broadcast is another form of traditional marketing. Earlier in the year, last year, we were on Global News, so Global Calgary, Edmonton, and BC for a competition, or contest, I should say, not competition, a contest to win a trip here to the Comox Valley, and it was to help promote Food Network Canada's Big Food Bucket List episode that was filmed here in the region and aired live April 30th. It's part of season 3, episode 7. If you have it on streaming services and want to go watch it, it's a pretty fun little episode. It also went along with a digital campaign where they shared 15-second promotional video of Comox Valley on social media. And then more recently, at the end of the year, CTV did some live on location weather reports with Warren Dean. It was December 9th, so it was a Friday night. He was here in Cumberland. You can see Chris there from Moon's Record. He got to do some live spot interviews. It was a really fun way to promote the community and, come shop local, get your Christmas presents, and as well as it involved a contest where people could text in live during the show for a chance to win, and there was approximately 2,000 contest entrants, so that was pretty cool. They were just watching live within the span of an hour and a half. That's how many people were texting in to try to win gift certificates to come here. We also do a number of promotional campaigns throughout the year, and these could be partner campaigns, so working with like the BC Ale Trail, for instance. We did a sip and stay early on in the year, as well as WestJet for some inbound marketing, like I said, targeting the Calgary, Edmonton residents to really, up the awareness that this is a direct flight option, because, not everybody is necessarily aware of that, but also give them reason to book now and to really try to inspire that messaging. We are also a part of Ride Island, Ahoy BC, and Golf Vancouver Island. And in the fall, we did a Tumble into Fall campaign, and in the winter, it was called Warm Up to Winter. And then throughout the whole year, we have always on just those digital search ads that just kind of run on Google. In September, we launched our new website. So earlier, we had gone through the whole rebrand process to Experience Comox Valley, but we had still been using the website that we inherited when we began the contract here. So this was really a chance to redesign it and to build it in a way that better promoted those leads to other tourism. So those click-throughs, like people come to our page, they can learn about the things to do, but we really want them to leave our page then and go visit the tourism businesses, to book their stay, to book a tour, to go check out the things. So the new website included free listings, so website listings, or any tourism or tourism-related business can have a page, as you can, like the example there is that Air Force Museum, showing what the page looks like. Also a new events calendar to feature what's happening right now, and that's another free thing. And then blogs and other information, itinerary ideas, those kind of things. And we're continuing to improve and build upon those. I mean, a website is evergreen information, right? It's always going to keep on changing and need to be improved. Consumer asset development, this is another key focus that we've been working on for the past year and a half, 2 years, and it's going to continue to be a key thing because, I mean, pictures say more than words do, so we really want to build up just great visual assets that we can use to really promote and highlight the different activities, whether it's video or just photos. Also written content, so like I mentioned, those blogs, website information. We did also partner with IFHT, or Mahalo My Dudes. They did a video, they filmed in September. It was a mountain bike video here up in Cumberland, and it showcased a couple of the other things to do in the Comox Valley, but it performed really well. It launched in January and had about 100,000 views. Just the little social media clip had over 200,000 views, so really great to see that people want to see that type of content. Our organic social media page, so we have our primary 2 pages, our Facebook and Instagram. We use user content, so it's user-generated content. It's visitors and locals telling the story from their point of view, and we get permission to share those on our sites. We have a daily post and then just answering comments, questions. It's a chance to amplify stakeholders' content that they're doing as well. So if someone's hosting a special event, we can promote it live on our stories. This is happening now. And we've been building that engaged audience. So Instagram is where the increase has really gone up, over 30% increased followers over the year. And then Facebook has stayed about the same. It already had a lot of followers to begin with, but it is slowly climbing up as well. And then so visitor servicing is the other piece. So we do have our year-round visitor center, which is located just on the other side of the highway with the big snowbird plane out front. It's open year-round from Tuesdays to Saturdays. In the summertime, busier months, when we've got the summer student positions, we run mobile kiosks. So here's an example of last summer out front of the Cumberland Museum. We like to set up downtown Cumberland, Comox, and Courtenay. And this year we're also looking forward to attending more events, having booths up at events where we know visitors are going to be, things like even the farmers markets, the Saturday market or the Wednesday market days, and those types of activities where there's a lot of people around that might be looking for other ideas for things to do and what to check out. At the visitor center itself, there's advertising opportunities for tourism stakeholders, a gift shop of local goods that is based on consignment, and we're looking to do more industry training on visitor servicing. So to front of house staff, providing resources, so people who work, say, at one of our local hotels or restaurants, if they're not sure where to direct people that are looking for things to do. Having little helpful resources, whether it's even like a little postcard QR code directing to our website, or a one-page flat sheet on here's the highlights of the area, things to promote. So looking forward, I briefly already mentioned asset development is going to continue to be a priority. Sustainable tourism planning, so working with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and as a destination moving forward with action planning that aligns with those. The events and experiences support, so we know that Comox Valley is so great for so many events and festivals that run on an annual basis that really attract people to our areas, to our communities, and we want to help those individuals and businesses that are putting on these great events. So that'll be something new that's coming this year. And then market research is another thing that we're trying to build upon. So really understanding visitor motivations, why they're coming here, as well as their satisfaction. We want to know what they think of our community and maybe get some insights into things that we can do better. So with visitor intercept and customer satisfaction surveys, we hope to gain some more of that information. All right, now, Callum, if you want to stand back up again in case anybody has questions.
Thank you. Thank you both. Yeah, that was wow. You guys talked fast, and that was a lot of information. So
Just got thrown on you.
I have a few questions, but I'll let council go first. Who wants to start?
I just want to say thanks. It's really great to see you guys changing with the times, and definitely that's something that our community is very concerned about, is just the influx of tourism and just the language around just changing your whole outlook is really nice to see. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pretty much
ahead.
much the same. It just quite often a lot of places have gotten blown up. I think things like Instagram, or probably coming in here, Seawolves is going to be massive impact. Can you actually speak to your anticipation of that particular Netflix offering with Will Arnett? Because obviously it's going to be. Do you have any idea what's coming this summer? Is my question.
Yeah, I think it's always tricky to know how much like that'll really take off. Yeah, I think the challenge that I see with that is, there wasn't a lot done to kind of contextualize like how difficult it is to see them, how remote it is, all of that. So we had the pleasure of doing some work in Tassus the past couple of years. And I know that our social channels, when that came out, were getting questions like where can I see them and what time?
Oh my God.
So, yeah, that's the tricky part. So for us, it's always about trying to encourage visitors to go out with a qualified and activity provider who can take them out safely to see things. And if they get lucky, they might see some wildlife. But go out with a professional and kind of do it in the right way.
Well, thank you for mitigating that kind of perhaps not unreasonable, but optimistic onslaught of people.
Anybody else?
No, my comments were similar to Sean's. Thanks for taking this in a sustainable direction. I'm really appreciating that idea.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks very much, and I really do appreciate that you guys have gone to this social enterprise model. Cumberland was one of the first to have a social procurement framework, and has been very involved in the SPI initiative. So that's great. We're happy to see that, and I think economic development has changed a lot, and I'm really like to see the shift and the shift in values that you guys are showing us today. I'm eager to see the climate action report for the whole island, and then the decarbonization part of that too. We're working on that at the regional district, the community emissions plan and things like that. So hoping to feed some of that information into what we're doing as well. And back to you as well. I did want to ask. Do you guys get a lot of feedback on like electric vehicle stations, that network here in the Valley or even past us, North Island, and how that is affecting tourism here on the island?
Yeah, totally. It's something that we're often asked by visitors as they're in that like trip planning phase. And to be perfectly honest, from a like development perspective, it's been a tricky one for us. Maybe about 4 years now, we've been trying to get different kind of charging projects up and off the ground. Most recently looking to basically bring free chargers to operators that were sort of strategically located in accommodation properties. And the challenge we kept running into where it was the ongoing maintenance costs and then fear of like loiterers. and people just like, going to won't name any attractions, but stopping at an attraction just to charge your car and not to actually go there. So it for some reason has been a little bit harder than I would have thought to try to like help encourage some like less traditional approaches of expanding that infrastructure. But we have seen more announcements recently about some like broadening EV charging infrastructure. They're adding a bunch of chargers out at the junction near Tofino and Ucluelet. So we're seeing like small incremental steps. But when we look at like targets for the sale of zero emission vehicles, like 10 years from now, we know that like we need an insanely rapid growth in that charging infrastructure. And when we look at wanting to kind of balance the benefits of tourism across the whole Vancouver Island region, like a lot of the work we've been focused on is helping our more rural and remote communities that don't have the hotel tax and don't have these existing mechanisms to grow. And if we don't have charging infrastructure there, it's really going to hurt a lot of the work we're doing now to try to spread out the benefits. So it's definitely a concern, and I think actually an area where we may be able to collaborate in a better way with local governments and regional districts and the provincial government to try to add a kind of a lens of equity and encouraging that, particularly with some of the more rural and remote areas in the region.
Great. I agree. Thanks.
Thank you. So we had a presentation from UROC recently, and they shared that they had 230,000 trail rides or walks or trail visits last year. So I very much appreciate the funding for trail maintenance here. It is a huge cost for our community that we can't afford to manage as much as it's needed. And UROC is doing a fabulous job of managing that asset. And so the sustainability track for us is moving away from attracting mountain bikers and moving towards attracting arts and culture visits and promoting our downtown core and getting those businesses some action. So to that end, I'm curious if there's any interest in collaborating on economic development impacts or tracking data through your work or any of that. Like you must be tracking visitors somehow. How are we tracking what they're spending, where they're staying, any of that information?
Yeah, well, so
How about you start?
we track obviously the number of visitors that come to the visitor center, the number of inquiries that we get, and as I mentioned, one of the things that we're looking this year is to get some more of that market research. I don't know if you want to speak to the data hub.
Yeah, there's also some provincial initiatives to kind of track the flow and movement of visitors, but it is a bit of a tricky one. And the best way to do it is like boots on the ground, intercepting visitors at like incrementally spaced times throughout the year. And I think that for me, for a community like Cumberland, where like with mountain biking being one of the primary drivers, it's a unpaid activity, and the key is to try to convert those folks, to bring respectful people first, and then to encourage them to spend money locally while they're here. And that's kind of the way, as we know, that the community will extend those benefits. So I think in a couple of respects, that's really great information for us to know in terms of how we're promoting Cumberland and the Comox Valley more broadly. So I think that we can make some adjustments to really try to hit that point home and encourage kind of local spending in the community. And then the other side of it is it sort of underscores the need for more consistent and reliable year-over-year funding for trail maintenance. And that's a conversation that, like, as we know, is happening all across the province. And yeah, it's a really, really tricky one.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think there's a lot. Yeah, I think there's a lot we could do. Maybe we just take their bikes for a period of time after they ride. Maybe there's a concierge program where they clean your bike and then you don't get it back till you've gone downtown or something. I don't know.
Show some receipts.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this and for your continuing evolution of the service. It's very much appreciated.
It's our pleasure. I used to live in Cumberland, so as a former
Nice.
resident, any excuse I get to be back here, I absolutely love, and yeah, really proud to be able to help support this community and others in the Comox Valley. So thank you.
Nice. Thank you.
you so much.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we need to receive that delegation, please.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And reports, Cumberland Events Society. Hello.
Hello, hello. Good to see you all again. Yeah, so this report is about a memorandum of understanding that we are proposing entering into with the Cumberland Event Society. As you know, the Cumberland Event Society has been putting on the Victoria Day weekend festivities, some version of which has been going on in the village for over 100 years. At one point it was a village event, then it was the Event Society event. All of this history has led to confusion, for lack of a better word, on some aspects of it. There's so many things, so many different elements that are involved in this event, so many of which are not necessarily recorded anywhere in a procedure. And I mean, we got talking one time last summer, like, what if so-and-so was no longer part of the village, or what if this, then how do we know what happens? And so we just thought it was time to create this document in order to clarify roles and responsibilities, that kind of thing. So a lot of it is codifying things that are already sort of standard operating procedure, and again, clarification. So things like some of the highlights, the business-like processes, just outlines, okay, expectations around communicating in advance what the plans are for the scope of the activity, make sure we're all on the same page and we're not making assumptions, oh, so-and-so knows how this is done, so-and-so knows how to do that. And also, along with those business-like procedures, is the expectation that there is a community event application that is submitted, just like all of our other events. And then that, alongside some other internal process changes with how we process events, is just going to help us keep more organized on the staff level. Clarification around the luncheon event, which I know has been discussed in the past. There was uncertainty around whose event this was, that kind of thing. A commitment that the village is hosting children's races or some kind of children's programming for the event. Again, that's something that we've been doing for years, and it was never written anywhere. It was just, yeah, I remember discovering it my first year at the village, but I think it was a couple weeks before, and like, oh, who's running your children's races? I'm like, my children's what now? So this is now putting that in paper. Yeah, equipment ownership, there's all sorts of, whether it's maples, stage, plywood, bunting flags, things that are stored in all various areas of village facilities. Are they ours? Are they theirs? So we're laying that out, and just, again, clarification. Yeah, and then setting up recreation, as the recreation department is the main point of contact for them. And again, just simplicity, being the small village and being, an event that's been going on for a lot of time. There's a lot of, I know so-and-so, so I'm going to talk to them, or I'm going to talk to them, and it's, not through any malicious intent or anything, but yeah, just trying to clarify everything. I feel like I keep on saying clarify. That's really what this is all about.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe I'll leave it at that. Hopefully you've seen the report. I do have a copy of the MOU, and I'm happy to try to answer any other questions. Maybe just one other thing.
Yes.
The other aspect around delegating the manager of Parks and Recreation to make changes, operational changes, that's just, in light of the fact that little things are going to change, I'm sure, from time to time. There are a couple of little outstanding things that we expect to be clarified in here in the near future. Things like putting up street flagging, accepting applications for the parade, which is something that we've been doing in recreation that's, again, not written anywhere. So awaiting some clarification on what that will look like, but we don't necessarily want to, if you want to be involved in all those things, you're more than welcome to, but I figured you might not want to.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think this just is taking it to clarifying the roles and is much needed as we. I've had some moments myself this year where I'm like, no idea whose responsibility is what here. So this is all very good work. Thank you. Questions, council?
I just had more of a comment. I just want to acknowledge all the good work that the Cumberland Event Society does and has been doing. I appreciate the, how should I say, organic nature of a lot of these events. But this will definitely help enshrine some of those going, in the future as to ensure proper succession. I think they do that naturally as it is, but it's good of the village and of staff to put that into a bit more structure, as much as I don't care for structure myself in my regular life. It will help us, and as these events perhaps grow and take hold, this is something I think that is very valuable for us. So thank you for that. And if anyone wants to come out and help paint the Soapbox Derby ramp in the near future here, I'll be putting it on the Soapbox Derby forum page, as I somehow inherited that role in a very de facto role organically. So that's my little bit.
Anybody else?
Yeah, if that's another village role that needs to work its way in here somehow, then
Do we have money for some paint and just a couple cans of, yeah. Anyway.
Other questions, comments?
Yeah, thanks for doing it. I think it's pretty hard to keep these things going, especially for new staff, if there isn't anything written down and it is in just the brains of a select few people. So it's great to have it all down on paper. I was wondering about, is there any sort of change in what we're doing as far as in kind, and is it just a more formalized process so that the things that we were doing in kind through labor or other things like that they just are put on paper and come to council rather than just being something that unfolds organically?
It's a bit of both, I suppose. So what we learned through the process was there was a little bit of a misunderstanding. So the Event Society had been granted a certain amount of a contribution from the village, and we learned that they, or some of them at least, were under the understanding that the expectation was they put that money back into paying for whether it's public works assistance or village services. And so what's come out of this process, and again, the word business-like processes, is this spells out that any village services, whether, again, public works assistance, anything they require, does have a charge-out cost, just like with any other event. Also, that this agreement is completely separate from any funding agreement that might be in place. But what this spells out is that they're not necessarily under any obligation to hire village staff to do these things. If they want to set up fencing and they've got their own volunteers to do it, that's great, have at it. There are a couple of small things that village staff have said that we have to do, we don't want someone else doing. I think putting up the May poles was one of them, just things that have safety considerations, that kind of thing. But yeah, it basically spells out that any services they require are going to be charged out at regular rates, just as with any other event, and that there's not necessarily any obligation to get village staff to do any of these things. So one of the things that's coming out of it, just through the conversation, is that it sounds like they're taking the initiative on some of these things, and that's going to end up keeping more money in their pockets, the organizational pockets, and are able to put back into the event. So I think it's going to alleviate some, whether it's confusion or extra work. It's going to be a win-win, I think.
That sounds great. And just wondering about insurance. So the Event Society had maintained insurance already, and so that wasn't really part of the process that needed clarification, or was it? Is there a different process for?
Yeah, I don't think that was part of the process that we thought needed clarification. I mean, they still will require insurance, just as any other event.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would say that would fit under there to apply for access to our properties to conduct the event like any other organization does, and with that comes a requirement for insurance.
Okay.
So they are essentially renting Village Park. for the purpose
But
of
nothing
the
has
event.
changed on that front as far as.
It's
this-
the
yeah.
policy's already set there, and other insurance requirements through other bylaw. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So I just have there's the line about garbage removal, which I appreciate. I can't remember where it is. Page 9 of 89, maybe? Yep. And so this is not just specific to this event, but I presume, or I'm hoping, that we have some sort of agreement in place with any event organizer where we're requiring the separation of returnables and like garbage sort of mitigation, diversion strategies. Can we build that into this? Or maybe I want to leave that to you to do next year? I feel like this might evolve over a couple of years. Like, we'll do this year, and then as you guys operationalize this agreement, there's probably...
So are we talking about a requirement to separate recyclables from garbage and putting that as a condition of
yeah,
permit?
like, so when we did Rib Fest, there was a whole system of like diversion so that we're not creating an enormous amount of garbage. So that's one of the weekends where we have, thousands of people come from all over here, and there is typically an overflow of garbage. So I just want to make sure we're encouraging that diversion for all of our events.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's anything that we've done explicitly thus far, but it's certainly something that we can look at.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that sounds like that is a larger special event administration
Yeah.
consideration beyond just this one. And that is, I think we can take some notes because we are looking at the overarching policy and process which these events are administered, and that can be something we look at.
Okay, awesome. And I know that the Accessibility Committee, too, has been working on an events, how to make your event accessible. So hopefully they've got access to that. Like, it would just be good to have all of our events following sort of those guidelines, right? Accessible and
Yeah.
waste-free, potentially.
And we do have, another sort of side project I've been working on over the past year has just been updating that events application manual. And that process did include, reaching out with Rachel and some members of the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee.
awesome. Okay.
So there is now some language in that document that speaks to inclusion and accessibility. And what I've said, I was also informed that the committee was working on some kind of guidelines. So I told them, let me know when those are available, and we'll be happy to,
Work
whether
on
it's
it.
linking to them or somehow making them available.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks so much for this work. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and there's a recommendation there, please.
I'll move that the manager of parks, I'll move that the committee recommend that council enter in the memorandum of understanding with the Cumberland Events Society and authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to execute the agreement. And furthermore, that the manager of parks and recreation be authorized to make changes to the MOU upon mutual agreement with the Cumberland Events Society, providing said changes are strictly operational in nature and do not change the village's financial commitment or level of service provision.
Seconder.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. Accessibility plan. Are you going to walk us through this, Rachel?
Yes, Mary Brown, I'd be happy to. So I give a bit of a background here. The Accessibility Act came into force in British Columbia in 2021, and it provides a legal framework to identify, remove, and prevent barriers to the full and equal participation of people with disabilities in BC. As part of that goal, the Act requires local governments to establish an accessibility committee, an accessibility plan, and a mechanism for feedback. And this has to be done by September 1st of this year. So I think earlier this year, the CVRD staff, in talking to the member municipalities, recognized the demands and challenges on municipalities of meeting this deadline. And they began work on exploring a regional accessibility framework in partnership with Cumberland, Courtenay, and Comox. And last week, the board did consider the framework and did endorse the plan to develop a regional framework and to enter into an agreement with the Comox Valley Social Planning Society to administer the Regional Accessibility Committee. And funds for that will be provided, $20,000 for this year from the General Services requisition for supporting the society with that. In regards to the member municipalities, I think Cumberland is the first municipality to consider participating. I believe Courtney Council might be receiving a report later this week. So this accessibility framework is intended to be developed collaboratively, and it will set out the shared principles relating to accessibility and inclusivity. We'll use the required specific guiding principles mandated by the legislation, identify types of barriers, and will be developed in consultation with both the Regional Accessibility Committee and Cumberland's Accessibility and Inclusion Committee. I know you all know that Cumberland's done quite a bit of work with the to improve accessibility in facilities and public infrastructure since the Accessibility Committee was established in 2015. And of course, there is more work to do to remove barriers in the community. If the village participates in this regional framework, I think it will give the village opportunity for council to complete its strategic plan, which is in draft form right now, and complete the OCP review, which will include a community vision and have some policies that will probably address accessibility. And it will also give a chance to for council to allocate some resources towards assessments and action plans that will come out of this framework. So other benefits to participating would be we would have an updated framework that is developed specifically to meet the legislative requirements. The current plan is from 2016, so we've achieved a lot of the recommendations in there, but I think it's something more current would be better suited for this purpose. And the village would have additional resources in the regional committee. Consultation with people with lived experience is an important part of the legislation. The regional committee would also be better able to meet the requirements of membership that reflects the diversity of people in BC and includes Indigenous people and reflects the diversity of people with disabilities in BC, which we might not be able to do in Cumberland because of the small population in the village. I think we all recognize that the village might be a little bit ahead of other municipalities because we've had a plan in place for a few years. And I think council, staff has heard council's shifting a little bit to a broader approach to inclusion. But I don't think participating in this framework will endanger that. I think it'll still allow that opportunity for council to choose to go that direction if it wishes to do so in its assessment and action plan. So we did include a clause in the recommendations just to give you comfort that it wouldn't be excluded, but I've talked to staff at the CVRD and there's no intention to limit that work. So there is a recommendation for you to consider to participate and an opportunity now to discuss it if you'd rather look at a different path. But it looks to be no harm and there's no additional cost for the village.
Councillor Barecki?
And just to clarify, given that we're one of the first ones, or if not the first one to consider this isn't predicated on unanimous participation from the other regional partners?
No, I don't
okay.
think so. I think if the others decided to go their own route, I think we could still take advantage of the opportunity.
No additional cost to the community. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, my question was similar. So CVRD has to go forward with this no matter what? Some
Yeah,
form of
'cause
this plan rather
every
than...
local government, it's a new
Yeah, so as a local
regulation
government.
from the province. So yeah, so every local government has to do it.
Yeah, and then this would be in addition to our current committee. So our current committee, presumably one member of our current committee would then sit on this one? Or how would they, have we figured out how the...
Right now they don't mix. I know the chair of Cumberland's committee is also on the regional committee and has been for some, I think, predating the establishments of Cumberland's committee itself. So I think working on the framework will allow council time to explore how how our committee will work with the regional committee and the roles of that. It'll just give us a bit more time to.
And seeing as how we're already funding it, it makes sense to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think the province's intention is to have inclusion, have that feedback coming from the community, and most communities don't. We already do, which is great. Like, there's a few things that we would need to tweak, I think, in order to meet the regulation. You know, I think we could do that on our own, but doing it regionally it makes a lot of sense, and working with our partners on all sorts of regional projects as well will be great for that feedback, but we'll also have the action plan come back to each individual community so that we have our own individual things that we need to do within our community that the region doesn't need to address, but we will still have that opportunity. So it's good. I think it's, yeah, and I think there is funding coming with it, right?
From the regional district?
To the regional district, I think, right?
I think the province funded the Disability Alliance of BC to provide resources.
Okay.
So they've produced a guide. I don't think there's any funding coming to municipalities other
So
than
maybe
that
it's going
support.
to the nonprofit
Yeah.
directly, and that to work on this work. And I think there's actually a meeting today, the Social Planning Society at 4. So in between our two meetings, there's a meeting on accessibility today. So just to let you know that.
Yeah, so that I think is the audit. So there's a few things happening right now, which is making this topic a little confusing for me. One of them, I think, is the social planning work that they're doing with the audit, which is a separate thing.
I think
right?
that's through the Community Health Network.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the Community Health Network.
I believe so.
Okay.
Which is happening through, I think, different funding source, and another great resource for municipalities in the region. I don't think there's any obligation to
Participate.
to implement any of the recommendations, but I think it's going to be a terrific resource to have. Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out, so this is not creating a plan for the region. This is creating a framework, and then each of us will have to do our own plan, but it's somehow still getting us out of the September 1st deadline to create that plan.
Yes, we
And
will
that's
be
the
meeting
benefit to us.
requirements of the legislation. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
As a first step.
Okay, thank you. So barring any other questions, is someone ready to move that recommendation?
Sure. I'd like to move that the committee recommend that council participate in the collaborative development of a regional accessibility framework, provided that socioeconomic and political inclusion and diversity are not excluded by the framework, and enter into an agreement with Comox Valley Social Planning Society for the services of a regional accessibility committee, along with other regional local government partners.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Well, you can choose, Rachel. All in favor? Thank you very much.
So just looking at the agenda for the social planning today, it's both the accessibility audit update and the accessibility plan update
Okay.
on the agenda. Yeah.
See if we can squeeze another meeting into today. Okay, strategic priorities. First quarter report. Michelle, are you going to
Sure, I
do highlights or something?
I can highlight a little bit. It's all in front of you. This may be one of the last updates on this particular strategic plan for council, as we'll be moving towards your next strategic planning priorities for our updates, depending when it gets done. Then the various different department quarterly updates is attached as well, and then the actual report that talks about how we've met your priorities and what our status update is on those. Of particular happiness, I guess, is that we were able to rescope the Cumberland's 125th, given we got like a third of the funding that we applied for. We were able to manage a somewhat rescope of that and then award the contract for that event. So that's for June 10th. We were able to get the 30 kilometer speed limit signs on Upper Kendall in response to council's direction from the presentation that took place. The presentation came to council for the urban forest bylaw, so that's moving forward, which is really great because that had some hiccups in the beginning. So it's great to see that that's on its way. And then we did get the what they call a REDIP grant, the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Grant, and that's really going to provide some really great impact analysis for you, and then also some work on our Union Road property. And finally, you were also introduced to the new development procedures bylaw as part of the development modernization project in the first quarter, which is great. That will keep going. And most of staff is here that we can answer some questions if you need to.
Awesome, thank you. Questions?
I do have a question about something that wasn't on there, the building community money or the allocation, when that is going to be coming back to us.
Yeah. So we've been doing some work behind the scenes to try and figure out what staff actually would like to recommend to council. So we've been doing that, and we actually thought about that grant in relation to the action plan for your new strategic priorities that we've been building. Okay. So that's where we kind of thought maybe. So we're not 100% sure. We were going to come back to council with a report for the use of those or recommendation of the use. And so we're just not sure if that's going to be a report or if we are possibly, I think it's going to be a report still. We're just trying
attached to the new strategic plan.
We were thinking of doing that, but it just because that's how we're basing our action plan. We're trying to see if that's a funding source that might be available. But I think it's possibly not possible at this stage to be able to get that to you that quickly. So maybe it'll be a report that comes back to council.
A separate report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
It looks like like 92% of the goals that we've got here completed, so that's that's looking good. The inventory of the natural assets, I've noticed, is behind. Is that still in progress then?
Yeah, I think that anything that's behind or overdue, we're either able to still deliver on it and it'll be outstanding until it's complete. But some of these, like this one in particular, might come and we just might get some clarity from you during your new priorities session, like your new priorities, just to see it kind of morphed into different areas, and I think we wouldn't mind some clarity about where that's landed, and so that'll probably be a discussion
During our strategic.
During the new strategic priorities, and then it'll make it on to the new one as a clarified item for what you.
And it does say that the sorry, Councillor Therian, were you done?
No, that's good.
The regional MNAI thing is completed, and so is there an outcome from that'll be shared to council, or is that work just at a staff level, or?
No, it actually hasn't been completed.
It hasn't been completed.
No, it did. I think it got stalled a portion of the way through. We went through phase 1, I think, but not.
Okay.
I don't know if.
Okay. Well, looking forward to more information on that.
Yeah, the one that is completed is the asset management policy. That's where the check mark is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just wanted to check in on the polls. I know there is some. A sense of urgency in the community to get those polls up somewhere. And so I'm looking at page 42 of 89, sorry. And I know staff is working on it, but if we have a timeline or a guess at the timeline, that would be great.
Right. Yes, I think staff has been working directly with Grant. And
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely being mindful of those timelines and trying to
Okay.
to work out what we
Okay.
can provide in capacity-wise. And
Awesome.
we'll probably be able to update council in the weekly update maybe, which might help. us
Sweet.
to know
Okay.
a bit more.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we have,
Add one and then it's gone.
oh,
Okay, it's okay.
it's okay, you can have another second to find it if you want. Yeah, I'm done. Okay, so there's a recommendation there. If we're done with questions?
Sorry, there was one more thing. On page
It's
46.
a really long report,
The-
so as you
yeah,
scroll down,
There's
there's
a lot
like,
of
oops.
attachments. I wasn't sure if you guys were asking
The-
questions about those.
The cooperative housing, you know, this is really old and it's not started, but they had asked for a list of properties, and since we're doing that list now for the province,
Yeah.
could we use that same list to go back to the BC Federation of Co-op Housing and try and restart that process with them?
Let me make a note of that.
Thank you.
I also just saw something else that I had highlighted, but I don't have a question. It's just a comment for the public if anyone is listening to this, that bylaw services were unavailable for some portion of the last quarter. And when our bylaw officer returned to work, he returned to 1,600 emails and phone calls. So if you're waiting for bylaw enforcement, and I know some of you are, because I'm getting emails, patience, please, and we're doing the best we can to catch up on those files. And I think that's it. Anything else? Okay. Who wants to move the recommendation?
I'd like to move that the committee receive the Strategic Priorities First Quarter Report, January to March 2023.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And question period? We have an audience. Do you guys have any questions? Just about the agenda, please, miss? Just the things on the agenda. Yeah. Which there's a lot. If you had one in front of you, I'm sure you would find a question.
There are no questions, Mayor Brown.
No questions. All right. Closed portion. Can somebody read that out, please?
You want me to do it? Okay, I'll go. So
Do you need to read all the bullets? Whatever.
I'll read it. I'll go fast. I'll
Okay.
do the auctioneer's voice. I'd like to move that the committee close the meeting to the public pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter to consider C, labor relations or other employee relations, E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably expected to harm the interests of the municipality. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including the communications necessary for that purpose. J, information that is prohibited or information that, if were presented in a document, would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And L, discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report under Section 98 Annual Municipal Report.
So done. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Excellent. Can we take a 2-minute before closed?